Welcome back to the Savage Report. I'm Andy Savage. We have both of the candidates running for Attorney General, Republican Alan Wilson and Democrat Matthew Richardson. Our next question goes to Alan. Alan, on your website, we read that the separation of church and state is not a constitutional principle. Do you stand by that, and why?
Well, because you can't find that statement anywhere in the Constitution. It was actually from an opinion from the Supreme Court in the 1940s referencing a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote to the Danbury Baptists probably 25 years after the Constitution was written. So it's not a constitutional principle. It's simply a precedent of Supreme Court law that people have attributed to the Constitution. Now, I'm not saying that we should be a theocratic state at all. I certainly believe that we need to have the church lane and the state lane, but it's gotten to the point to where kids are not even allowed to pray in school. And, you know, I find it ironic that the only time that someone's allowed to have a prayer vigil is after a bunch of kids go through and shoot people in a school. Maybe if we allowed kids to have the values from the different faiths that people believe, that maybe those type of incidences wouldn't occur. So I think we need to protect and secure that right of folks to pray even in a public venue.
Thank you, Alan. Matthew, let me ask your take on that. Is the separation of church and state a constitutional principle?
Well, we have in the First Amendment both the free exercise and the anti-establishment clause, and I think it's very important that we not pick and choose which parts of the Constitution we're going to defend, and I certainly won't do that.
Matthew, recently up in Somerville, a town located very close here to Charleston, they recently tried to pass an ordinance that would have made it the law for landlords and business owners to check the legal immigration status of anyone they did business with. Do you believe this type of law is legal, and is it something that you would promote?
We know that immigration is a very serious issue and one that needs to be addressed, but it's part of national security. It's under the Department of Homeland Security, and the federal government needs to do their job of enforcing the laws. Now, South Carolina has passed laws like E-Verify and the one you're talking about, just like Arizona did, in frustration because the federal government wasn't enforcing the immigration laws. And if we're going to do it here at the local level, and we can, we need the training and resources so that it doesn't take away from the other criminal and legal enforcements that we are charged with doing and keeping our public safe.
Alan, what's your position on that?
I've always believed that the power closest to the people at the local or municipal level should be the strongest, not at the federal level, which is where we seem to be trending. So I support, those municipalities. I have not looked at that issue in depth, but on its face, I certainly support it.
So if it became an issue, the Attorney General's office would stand behind the municipality?
At this point in time, absolutely. You always reserve the right to, after looking at the issue in depth, to change your mind. But on its face, I certainly do support it.
Alan, you have an impressive resume as a prosecutor, both in the Attorney General's office and in the county level up there with Donnie Myers. It seems to me that your jurisdiction, that is the 11th Circuit, has tried probably more death penalty cases than any other circuit. My question to you is, in these economic times, can the state of South Carolina afford the incredible expense of death penalty cases?
Yes, I believe I am pro-capital punishment, and I do believe, I don't believe it's so prolific that we can't afford it. We should be judicious. It should be the exception, not the rule, but absolutely I support it.
Matthew, it seems to be it's not only on the prosecution side, but the judicial side and the defense side that a death penalty is grossly disproportionate to, let's say, a regular murder case that ends up in life imprisonment. What would you do about imposing the death penalty during these severe economic times?
Well, in the appropriate case, it needs to be available and it needs to be pursued as the swift and severe punishment for violent, extremely violent crimes with aggravating circumstances. That's what we reserve it for. But we also know that when we make the decision to turn it into a capital case, it adds years to the process and millions of dollars just to that one case. We've got to be better stewards and smarter about our enforcement and prosecution.
Matthew, next question is going to you. Are you going to be tough on fraud and corruption? And do you think Attorney General McMaster's decision not to prosecute Governor Mark Sanford over his questionable travel and other problems that he had in his administration, was that the correct decision, or would you have taken other action?
This is one of the primary motivations for my running for Attorney General. You know, we've had too many career politicians that have looked out for themselves and their friends. Right now, we've got several statewide office holders who have misused tax dollars for private gain, to redirect economic development trips and to take family vacations. And all they had to do was pay the money back. It's a slap in the face of the taxpayers, and it's not right. I'll be much more aggressive at prosecuting public corruption, and I will never get in that situation where you have a political calculation of whether you're going to help one of your political opponents if you go after the governor.
Alan, your take, did Mark Sanford get a pass?
Well, first off, as someone who's prosecuted many cases and has extensive experience in prosecuting cases, you never make a decision until you have yourself reviewed the file in its entirety. I trust that the Attorney General made the decisions based on the information that he had at that time. Now, it's easy to say that because someone's of the same party that you're not going to prosecute them, but that is just demagoguery. I would never treat anybody any differently as a prosecutor. I've never looked at anyone's race, their gender, their party affiliation, anything about them other than the facts of the case. And I believe that you have to give the Attorney General credit when he looked at the facts of the case and made his decision. But just to say it's politically motivated, that's not very fair.
Andy, I'd like to respond because that's not what I said. The Attorney General was in a tight spot because he was running for governor against someone who was a lieutenant governor, and he was being asked to investigate and decide whether or not the governor needed to be prosecuted. We need an Attorney General who be independent and stand up to anyone who breaks the law, whether they live under a bridge or in the governor's mansion. And I've done this. Barnwell County hired me to go after a public official who was misusing the child support enforcement funds. And I did that. He's no longer in office, and we got those funds redirected in the right direction.
One more round of questions with the candidates when we come back. You're watching The Savage Report on Comcast C2. We're all local, all the time.